My name is Cece Hunter, and this is my informative speech. This is my audience. True stories. I played tug of war with snow leopards. I've painted canvases with sea lions, and I've even filled pools for elephants. Did this as my job? Well, I didn't exactly do it as my job, but I was a volunteer at zoos and aquariums for many years. I studied environmental science in college with a focus on endangered species, specifically conservation and their habitats and how they're affected. I learned a lot in school and at these zoos and aquariums and how they can benefit endangered species. I also learned how their conservation efforts are at the forefront of these establishments, and they're not just for profits or entertainment like they once were. Despite what you may have seen or heard in the news or on documentaries, zoos and aquariums play a vital role in preserving fragile ecosystems. In order to understand the importance of zoos and aquariums in modern society, you must understand what types of conservation programs they implement and how they benefit the captive animals' wildlife counterparts. By understanding the impending extinction crisis, conservation efforts, and inner workings of zoos and aquariums, one can understand the importance of zoos and aquariums in modern society. It's important for us to see why and when zoos and aquariums begin shifting their missions and goals towards a more conservation-focused approach rather than for profit and entertainment. Now, we're all familiar with the 2013 documentary Blackfish, right? The documentary showed the predecessor to SeaWorld, which was called Marine Land of the Pacific. In the 1960s, Marine Land of the Pacific began capturing wild orcas. The documentary states that the animals were put on display, held in small cages, and used in shows for entertainment. This was the beginning of people viewing zoos and aquariums as harmful to animals rather than preserving them. No matter what side of the debate you stand on, this documentary led a huge shift for most zoos and aquariums to become more vocal and upfront with their conservation efforts, regardless of whether they were in place before 2013 or not. SeaWorld was not the only establishment affected by this. And other establishments and sanctuaries began putting forth their mission and goals as conservation focused rather than for profit. Most sanctuaries now focus their message on conservation, recycling, climate change, and how to combat extinction, which is a huge problem. You might notice when visiting your local zoo or aquarium that most exhibits will talk about or touch base on extinction, and you might think why. They'll either discuss the animal's potential for extinction and rate them on a scale, or we'll discuss the efforts being used to combat them. Extinction is a huge, quiet, but underlying reason for zoos and aquariums' existence. Every zoo and aquarium I've worked at ensured that we knew where the animals were on the scale. In Paris 2019, the UN at the seventh session of the IPBES plenary meeting reported that the rate of extinction and decline was unprecedented, and that one of the main contributing factors was humans. One major program being utilized here in the US is the Species Survival Plan, or SSP, and it is one of the most important programs to combat extinction. Not a lot of people know about this. I'm sure we've all heard at some point about the rhino crisis. How many rhinos do you think are left in the world? According to the wildlife website, World Wildlife Fund's website, in the 1950s, there was over 500,000 rhinos roaming in Africa. Today, there are only 27,000 remaining in the wild. The San Diego Zoo here in California is one of the most productive organizations in rearing rhino calves, specifically the great white rhino. They reared over 90 calves during their program. However, this program was ended due to the no longer self-sustaining population in the park. The last two remaining northern white rhinos live in Kenya under 24-hour surveillance. This program was initially made possible by the SSP, or Species Survival Plan. It's an intricate breeding captive program that gives animals numbers and breeds them with other zoos and aquariums that are AZA accredited across the nation. It has been used successfully not only for rhinos, but for pandas, polar bears, and even small things such as frogs and bugs. While programs like these may be more obvious to guests, there are a lot of underlying subliminal messages that zoos and aquariums have that they give to guests to encourage them to better their world, even at home. We can look at those ways and see how they encourage people to be better to the natural world around them and use these exhibits to encourage protection of them. Many zoos and aquariums have a lot of programs that focus not only on the conservation of animals, but the planet as well. A huge one is recycling programs. They also emphasize the importance of composting programs or encouraging people to even grow their own food or talk about rainwater and its impact. Another way zoos and aquariums have restructured is that they influence the attitude of their guests to alter their daily behavior, even at home. Most zoos and aquariums are located within highly densely populated areas, such as big cities like New York, London, LA, where people can't get to the wildlife, animals, natural habitat. By having these zoos and aquariums within these highly densely populated areas, it encourages the younger generation to become scientists, to study how they can be better, to study conservation, how their one tiny bottle they recycle has a huge impact on the Amazon that's being destroyed to produce these types of items. These establishments act as mentors to future generations by encouraging them to do these types of things. There's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to zoos and aquariums, and it's normal for a lot of people to simply say that they're just a jail or housing for these animals. However, understanding why we have these thoughts is one way we can begin to alter how we view these establishments. It's important to not only recognize humans as part of the problem, but to see them as a solution as well. Zoos and aquariums have come a long way from being the entertainment houses they used to be, just like Marineland. They've come a long way from displaying orcas. While there's still a lot of work left to be done, they have improved tremendously. So next time you visit one, look past the animals, read the signs, and ask what efforts are being done to preserve these animals and help them. I'm sure somebody living out their childhood dream would be more than happy